Hey, very good evening, all. We will just wait for a couple of minutes, then we will start. Hey, very good morning, all. Ajis, can you please paste the question to everyone? I'll just share my screen. Okay, so before starting session, see, this will be a short session. We will wrap up today's session in an hour or so. Okay, so then next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, you will be having hands-on on the GitLab, and from Thursday, we are going to start the new tool that will be Jenkins. So today it will be like a kind of a briefing session where um, we'll see some more concept regarding the Git, and if you do have any question, then we will take it up. So Ajit is asking, what is the difference between release and hotfix? Okay, so Ajit, what happens is, so let's say this is master. This is your master branch is going. Now your company master is like stable code. Okay. So now after some time, your company will start developing new features, new code, and want to deploy them to the production by using some particular release calendar. Okay. So let's say you want to do deploy something in June. So you can create a release June branch from your master, and you start developing your code, new code in this. Once it deployed into production, okay, you will merge it to your master. Similarly, let's say you want to create another release. You create release July, you do all your development there, and you merge it, right? So that is a release branch. Release is basically it's a regular release. If you want to deploy some new code to production, okay, then it is going to have a release branch, and you do all your development to the release branch, and you deploy your release to dev, test, pre-prod, and then production. So this is general guidelines, but depending on your environments, it could be different as well, right? So this is about the release branch. Now, what is hotfix? Now let's assume you deployed your release branch code to production, right? It was working fine in the dev environment. It was working fine in the test environment. It was working fine in the pre-production environment. But when it goes to problem, there is a issue. So you are facing some issue in your live environment. Okay, you need to fix uh, that issue, uh, whatever you are facing, right? So you deployed your code to the production, and then you need to fix it. So what is the strategy for that is you deploy the previous stable code, okay, to production, so that for the time being you have a stable code in the production, and meanwhile you create a hotfix branch. Hotfix branch from the code which is having the issue. Okay, once you create a hotfix branch, you start investigate the issue, and let's say you find some issue, you do some development, then you deploy this hotfix branch only to pre-production and production. Once the issue is fixed, you again merge it to the master. So hotfix branch is basically used to to mitigate any issues that you are dealing in the production environment, in your live environment. Okay. See, Sayat, centralized flow is nothing but here any deployment will happen. So let's say this is a master, right? Now you cut a feature branch, for example. You do your development to the feature branch, that is okay. But when you need to deploy, you need to merge it. Then you deploy your central branch only. That is called the centralized flow, and mostly we do not use it. But yes, this is just one of the way of doing the things. But it is not a very efficient way of doing the things. So if you have a very small project, then probably you can use it. Otherwise, it is not a very good efficiency. Rohit, that is a difference between the release and the hotfix branch. Hotfix branch has a special purpose because you already has a code that is working in the lower environments, right? Uh, you got some issues in the production environment. That is why hotfix. See, branch we do not create on the environment. Branch we create in the source code management system. We deploy the code that is there in the branch in the environments. Okay, so we already had some code. Uh, we are merging, we are cutting the branch from here, which is already has this code which is working fine in the dev and test environment. So we want to mitigate the issue on the production environment, right? So that is why hotfix we directly deploy it to the pre-production and the production, not on the lower environments. Now, there are some terms that you will be hearing every now and then. One is the environment. So, anyone, any understanding about the environment? Anything? Non-prod, dev, staging, prod. Okay. Okay. So basically, environment is a set of, if I talk about in the general terms, okay. So it is a set of servers. Let's say this is an environment. It is a set of servers where your application got deployed in a very simple terms. Now, these days, the environment is getting complex day by day. Okay. So what does it mean is we have first we can be having multiple environments. Okay. So first we have the dev environment. Second, we have the test environment. Third, we have the stage, or we call it as a pre-production environment. And in the last, we have the production environment. Okay. So dev environment is being used where developer uh, is developing their code and testing the functionality. Now, testing the functionality means in a local environment that whatever they are developing is working fine or not. Okay. So dev is kind of a local environment. Now, once the code is developed into the deployed into the dev environment, it got pushed to the test environment. Now, generally, depend on the requirement, there could be more than one test environment, one for, let's say, system testing, one for integration testing. Okay. So it depends on your application requirement, how many test environments do you want to have? But there could be multiple test environment, or you can work with a single test environment as well. Now, all your testing is done, then you move the code to the staging environment. Now, staging is, we call it as a staging environment or a pre-production environment. It will be the replica of production environment. And once everything is good in the pre-production environment, then in the last, we will be pushing the code to the production that we call it as a live environment. So we generally call it as a prod production environment. And so we have these four categories of environment. Nowadays, if you go into any project, there is one more environment coming into the picture that we call it as a DR environment. So DR is like the what we say DR environment, and this could be a good interview question as well. DR is like a disaster recovery environment. So for example, this is your prod environment with whatever server and configurations. This is the replica of your production environment. Okay, this is prod, this is DR. Now, why we need DR is if something goes wrong, okay, at the infrastructure level, at the physical level, and the production goes down, then you can promote your DR to work as a prod. Okay, so so that is why it is called the disaster recovery. So in case of any disaster, you can recover very quickly. You promote this environment as a production environment because it has the complete replica of the production environment. So these like 4 or 5 environments do we will be having. Does only test and prod are enough? Okay, so Sushil, now it depends on your requirement. These are the general guidelines, as I'm saying, test, stage, and the prod. But if you are thinking, you are, let's say, if you are doing on, for example, if you are developing a mobile application, okay, in mobile application will not be getting deployed on these servers. Okay, where they got deployed? They got deployed on App Store and Play Store. right? So you will be getting your account in App Store and the Play Store, and you need to deploy your application into these stores. Now, here you might not be needing the 3 4 environments, because for creating the 3 4 environments, you will be needing 3 4 developer account with these marketplaces, and that would be very costly, right? So here you can have only test environment and production environment, or we say there will be two environment. There's a non-prod or prod. Now all the activities related to your testing, your development, you do on the non-production environment, and then once you're satisfied, you move it to the production environment, right? So that is again, yes, you can have, but you need to understand and assess your application requirement, that you want to have only two environments or you want to have more than two environments. What is the difference between dev and acceptance environment? See, environment wise, there will be no difference. So it could happen that at your dev environment, there are only two servers, but your testing environment, there are four servers, but in production there are 16 servers. So the size of the environment can vary, but the purpose, the functioning of the environment, there will be no difference. Dev, test stage, and pre-prod were all via testing. So again, there will be different type of testing. So let's say if you're doing unit testing, it might happen on the dev environment. Then if you are doing the system testing, automation testing, that may happen on the testing environment. Load testing can be done on the pre-production or the staging environment. So different type of testing can be happen. How does the code replication happens between prod and DR environment? Okay. See, we are having this complete CI/CD pipeline, right? We will be having this CI/CD pipeline that will be deploying the code to dev, test, stage, and prod, right? What are these environments? So as I said, these environments are nothing, just a grouping of the servers. So we need to just give the server details of the DR environment, and it will push the code to uh, the DR environment as well. So again, you need to define a strategy in as per the requirement of your application, how frequently you are doing this replication. So let's say in your production, you are doing a daily build, a daily deployment. So then you can decide you want to do a code sync 3 day a week or once in a week. So those type of things, you need to create a strategy out of it. But yes, you can do a, so there will be no code replication. Okay. So code replication is not a right word for what you are asking, because code is always there in the source code management, and it has nothing to do with the environment. Okay. So code is same for all the environments, whether it's a dev, it's a test, it's a stage, it's a production, or the matter of the fact, whether it's a DR as well, right? So code replication is not the correct word for it. Code is same for all the environment. It is just we will be deploying the same code base what we are deploying to production to the DR environment. Replication happens at the database level. Okay, so if let's say if you have some database that is there in the production and you want to create an application, so then for the DR environment there will be replication will be happening at the database level, so that all of the data of the production environment will be there into the DR environment. That then only it would be able to function smoothly in absence of the in the downtime of the production environment. Now there are different type of testing that is done. Okay, one is unit testing. Second is automation testing. Third is system testing. Integration testing. Load testing. And smoke testing. Rohit, in the real time, uh, the DevOps engineer job is to write the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so your job is to write the CI/CD pipeline. Now, of course, you will not do it independently because you need to consult with all the stakeholders, right? So now this CI/CD pipeline orchestrate the code push to different environment, whether it will be manual, whether it will be automated, if it is automated, how much it is automated. So all these things you need to design in your CI/CD pipeline. So that is the whole purpose of the CI/CD pipeline and the DevOps. So that, see, we manually does not push the code. Okay, code push and deployment should always be happen with the CI/CD pipeline. So you write all the steps that what should be the steps. So if let's say if you want to deploy something, so you have written that a particular script, a shell script or a Python script to deploy something. Now you are not going to manually run that script. You accommodate that step in your CI/CD pipeline. Now the question is you are triggering your CI/CD pipeline in an automated manner or in a manual manner. Okay, so let's say for example you created a CI/CD pipeline that pushed the code to dev environment. Okay, code got pushed, or I would say code got deployed. Pushing a code is like you are pushing the code files. Okay, that should not be the case. What is the outcome of the code? It's while deploying the code. Okay, so let's say code got deployed to the dev environment and the users can access all the URLs, everything is working. Now from dev to test, you want to push it manually or you want to push it in an automated manner. If the if the code got deployed on the dev environment successfully, it should automatically push or deploy it to the test environment. So that level of decision you as a DevOps engineer you need to take, keeping all of the stakeholders alignment in place. Okay. Now we were talking about the testing. Now this is a different type of testing. There may be many more types as well, but these are some of the common types. So unit testing is whenever you are writing a particular single class. Okay, so you need to test that class. So if let's say if you are developing a Java based application, now your application might be having multiple class files, right? So you need to test each class individually as well before you test them as a complete application. Okay, so that is called the unit testing. Second is automation testing is like uh, your unit testing will be part of your CI/CD pipeline. Automation testing is once code deployed to their test environment, then the testing team will be writing the test cases scenario, and with the help of these test cases scenario on some testing tool like Selenium, they will be doing this automation testing. Okay, so automation testing or system testing is kind of a similar. So basically, with the help of automation testing, we test the system only if it is working fine. So let's say if I'm going to login page, it should give me the Facebook login, Google login, or the Apple login. So this is one of the test case. I'm clicking on the login and I'm seeing only the Google page, Google login page. So then it is an issue, right? So all these type of testing will be done in the automation testing and the system testing. Third, and fourth is integration testing. Integration testing is like your application will be integrated to multiple other systems, right? It is nowadays you will not be creating the standalone application. Your application will be talking to some databases, some external system, all right? Their user authentication will be at some place different. So all these type of a testing will be done under the integration testing. Then we have the load testing. And load testing is generally done on the pre-production environment. So load testing is basically uh, how much load your application can take. So for example, I developed a mobile application. Now I assume that only 10,000 users will be using it. So and these 10,000 users can come at the same time as well, right? So I need to test my application with the 10,000 users if my application is able to take up the load or not. Okay, so that is called the load testing, and it is very critical for the application. So, for example, let's say right now, if I take the example of Amazon, hypothetically, uh, on a daily basis, let's say there is 5 million customer coming to their application, right? But when they announce the sale, like the Great Billion Day sale, or there will be Deepavali sale coming up. So the the user base that is coming to their application will be, let's say, more than 10 million or 20 million, right? So their application should be capable enough to handle these 20 million users. Otherwise, it will crash, right? So that is called the load testing, where we put the dummy load. Okay, it will not be the actual load. There will be the dummy load. We will be creating, let's say, dummy user who will log into the application. They will do some random things, and by the way, this whole process is automated. Okay, you are not going to create 20 million users manually. So we will put up this synthetic load on a particular application and see how much load this application can handle. Okay, so the benchmark will be given to you that you need to test this application with 1 million user or 20 million user and so on. So on the basis of these benchmark, you perform a load testing, and if needed, if all goes well in the load testing, then it is good enough. But if everything is not good with the load testing, then you might need to do some fine tuning on, let's say, infrastructure level, on the code level, so that your application does not get crashed while taking more and more traffic. That is called the load testing. Now, smoke testing is the last. So, smoke testing is actually very simple type of a testing. It is just like the final sanity check. Okay, so let's say once you deploy your application and your application is accessible at www.amazon.in. So smoke testing is like it will try to reach out to that URL and see if that URL is working or not. Because if the URL is not working, then there is no point of all these deployment and all, because user is going to access your application by this URL only. So smoke testing is like the final and basic check that your application is working fine. Santosh, yes, definitely. As I said, uh, this whole process is automated. So yes, there are tools. So I'm not remembering the name at the moment. Load runner is one of the tool. Okay, but let's see what are the other tools. So you see, Apache JMeter is one of the tool. Load Runner is one of the tool. Neo Load, Load UI. So there's you are going to get multiple tools. You see top 15 open source. So JMeter and Load Runner is like very commonly used. JMeter. So right now we have done a load test recently with the JMeter. Locust is there. So there's multiple basically, right? And when I'm saying we have done the load testing, it means the project that I am working with, their testing team has done the load testing. But we should be aware of what is happening in the load testing, what is the outcome of the load testing. But you as a DevOps engineer will not be directly doing the load testing. It is not our responsibility, but we should be in the loop. Okay. Now there are some deployment strategies. Okay. And again, this is a very common interview question. So remember this, whatever the strategies we are going to discuss. One is a blue-green deployment, and another one is a canary deployment. Okay. So this is like one of the most common interview question. What is the difference between blue-green and the canary? Okay. So, and when we say the deployment strategies, we are generally concerned about the production, not about the lower end. So what happens is, let's say this is my production, my prod environment. Now at any particular time, let's say my application is running. We Now you made some changes in your application, some modifications, some feature enhancement, all of that. Okay. And you deploy to dev test, pre-prod, and you finally deployed it to the prod. So there will be another version called B2. Okay. Now what happens is in blue-green deployment, you will be deploying two version of an application at a particular point of time. Okay. So let's say this is blue, this is green. But only one version is active. So if my end user are hitting, they will be hitting this version. Okay. This version is deployed, but it is in isolation. So once this version got deployed in isolation, get deployed on the production, you do some sanity checks on sanity checks is basically like the final testing. Your application got deployed, and you as the end user will go and see if all the functionality of application is working fine. And this is like a final check. Once you are sure that every functionality is fine, then you promote this environment as the active environment. You promote this environment after the sanity check as the active environment, and all your user requests will come into this version, and this version we will retire and delete it. Now after some time, another version comes as a v3, We will do a sanity check over this. Once sanity check is completed, the request will be coming from this, and we are going to retire this one. So that's how incremental process will go into the picture. Okay, where at any point of time there can be two versions of an application will be available on the production system, but only one will be active at a time. Okay, so that is called the one version is called the blue version, another is the green version. So we call it as the blue-green deployment. Sushil, can you please post any question to everyone? Guys, I'm repeating this again and again. So why do we need blue and green version? So because when we want to go live, we want to be sure that application is working as expected as not. So once it is deployed, till the time sanity checks are not done, we are not keeping it live. So that is why there is two version at any point of time. So that will not be the case every time. Okay. So once your sanity check is done, then this is retired, right? So you are having only one version. But when you are deploying a new version, at that time, till the time sanity is not completed, there will be two version. Your application will be served by the old version till the time your sanity is not completed. Okay. So all the time we do not need the two version. We only need when you are deploying a new version. Now, there's another form of blue green only, we say. This is canary deployment. So again, this is my production environment. This is my old version running. Fine. Now I deployed another version. Okay. Here, the difference between canary and the blue green. Understand it very carefully. In blue green, what we are doing is we are doing the complete sanity on the new version that got deployed. And once our sanity is completed, we migrate all the traffic from the old version to the new version and retire the old version. Okay. But in Canary, what we do is, so let's say 10 users, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. 10 users, hypothetically, 10 users are accessing my application. Okay. You deployed another version. So instead of doing the complete sanity, what we do in the Canary release, we open our app for a very small set of audience. Okay. So let's say in this example, I say when I'm deploying a new version, I'm opening it for the 10% of the traffic, right? So 10% of the traffic is, if the 10 users is coming, one user will come at the version 2 and the 9 users will go to version 1. So now you see both of the versions are live at the moment, but 90% traffic is going to the version 1, that is the old version, and 10% traffic is coming to version 2. The philosophy behind this is, if there is something, if something goes wrong with the new version, it is only going to impact the 10% of the users. Okay, not the all of the users. And gradually we increase the traffic base. So we decide, let's say every 5 minutes, increase 10%. So every 5 minutes, the new request will start coming here. Every 5 minutes. Now this 10% and the time, both of these things you can configure. So you can start with the 5%, you can start with 20%, you can start even with the 50%. Okay. So that you are just exposing your new version to a small set of the audience. So I'll give you a real life example of this. So what happens is sometime you might have heard when Facebook, Instagram, Google, or WhatsApp, they announce any feature. Okay, they announce some feature, they release it to a particular geography first. Okay, once they are satisfied with the feedback, they are deploying it, they are releasing it to a small set of audience, does not means they are not capable enough to deploy it worldwide. It is just they want to take a feedback for these small set of audience, and once everything goes right, then they deploy it to the large audience. So that is why when we heard that WhatsApp has released some feature, but that feature is only available in US region, because they want to take the feedback first to the small set of audience. Once everything goes well, they will make it available to the larger set of audience. So that is we call is this a canary release. Okay. Yes, you can say you are right. Beta users is a like of a canary release. But Sushil, beta users, and I'll say that there is a difference between the beta users and the canary release. Okay, so the difference is when we say beta users you are going to use before releasing of your product. Okay, so let's say for example I develop some product. I have not released that product yet, but I want to get a feedback. So I come to you and I say to you, hey Sushil, I developed this application. Can you please test it, use it, and share your feedback? Okay, that is called the beta users. So before releasing your product, you are getting the feedback from your real-time users. That is beta users. But here in the Canary, you have released your product. Okay. It is in the real-time uses, and you are just diversing some small part of your traffic. You do not know like which user is coming to your new uh, version, right? So it is like you are taking a random feedback. Beta testing, you know your target audience. Here I'm just saying 10% traffic should come to my new version. Now anything, I could be, if you are requesting and someone else is requesting, any request could go to the new version, right? So we do not know who is coming to the new version. So it's like a more robust and raw feedback. In beta testing, we go to our target audience and get it tested before the release. So that is a small difference, but the functionality is the same. Yes. Now, to understand these terminologies are very actually critical for a DevOps engineer, because you might hear every time deployment, environment, production, non-production, release, hotfix. So that's why I take this opportunity of this class to go through the basic concept, deployment strategies, all these things. So I just have one question. So what do you mean by deployment? So let's say if I say I'm going to have a deployment, what is your understanding about a deployment? If you need to define a deployment, what you would say? Anyone? Mm, setting up, pushing the code to other environment, distribution of the application to the target user, releasing the application to the prod server to give final app to the user. It's a stage where we release the develop method. Okay, so all of you are partially correct. Okay, Setting up, Yasin, setting up is not the right thing because first you need to set up the environment. Okay, your servers, your connections, all of these things. Then you can deploy. Pushing the code to environment. Yes, Rohit, it's a kind of a true. Uh, See, deployment. If we say in very general terms, okay, deployment is basically make the application available to the end user so that end user can use this application. Now, it is not specific to the prod server because you can deploy your application, let's say, to the testing environment so that it will be available to the testing team. Okay. So distribution of application to target user is kind of a right or to give final app to the users. It means deployment basically means now your application is ready and you can use it. So I always use this terminology. Okay, so let's say I'll take an example of a movie. uh, in making of a movie there are many things involved. Your actors are involved, your directors are involved, there's the casts and crews are involved. This shoot the movie, they shoot the movie for like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, right? Once their product are ready, they release it in the theaters, right? So that the end user, the public, the audience will go and watch that movie. Similarly, developing the code is like making the movie and you want to deploy it. It means you are releasing the movie, releasing the code at the theater. Okay. So as a DevOps engineer, your responsibility is to release the movie as soon as possible in the theaters and make the theaters up and running. Okay. So that the public coming to see the movie will not be facing any challenges. It's the same thing, Yasin, when we are seeing releasing and the deployment. So release is a broader term. Okay. In release, deployment is an activity, but it's a major activity. So we use these term interchangeably. Okay. So in the release is like a whole process. Okay. So when we are saying we are having a release, so then you need to create a release calendar, inform all the stakeholders, taking all the approvals, doing your code deployment. Then you do a sanity check. Then you inform all the stakeholders that code deployment is now done and you can use the application. So this all is part of release. Now the major activity in the release is the code deployment. So we generally use these two terms interchangeably. So as a DevOps engineer, our activity is our focus will be making the CI/CD pipelines, uh, creating all the orchestration or the workflow so that whenever and whatever needed will be deployed or released to any of the environments, right? And second activity is make sure these environments will be up and running. So we were talking about the environments. Environment is nothing but just a group of servers. Now, this definition is these days, if we talk about in 2012 or 13, uh, it is the right definition. But nowadays, environment is getting more and more complex. There will be some cloud component there. You might be deploying some application on Kubernetes. So now, today, it's not only about the servers. There could be many components. There will be cloud components. There could be container components. There could be virtual machines, and there's other things as well. Yes, in general terms, it is right. So unfortunately, we are not going to cover cloud in this course. But if you know any one of the cloud, whether GCP, Azure, AWS, it would be good for a DevOps engineer profile, because most of the companies today, they are kind of a hybrid. Some application are running in Azure, some application is running over cloud, some is running on premises. So after this DevOps, if you learn any one of the cloud, it would be very beneficial, very beneficial for your profiles. Yes, so she'll be whatever we discuss. So once we go through all of the tools, see, CI/CD pipeline is an integration of various tools. So right now we have seen only Git. So we need to learn Jenkins. We need to learn Docker. We need to learn Kubernetes, Ansible. So once we go through all of these tools, then we have a complete CI/CD demo, how to deploy it across environments, how to deploy it. Since we will not be working on any live application, so production does not mean anything to us. So we will assume one environment non-prod, another is a prod, or we can do the deployment. So yes, we will be having a complete hands-on, but so currently we have seen the hands-on for the Git, right? So as we cover the tools, so let's say we are covering the tools, Jenkins, then we will see the concept regarding the Jenkins, how to set up a pipeline, uh, how you can do the continuous integration builds, all these things. Once we see the Docker, so we see how we can create the containers, what is the image and all these things. But a complete CI/CD demo we can have once we have an understanding of all these technologies. So don't worry, whatever we are going to discuss in this class, we have a complete hands-on and assignments and demos for everything. So we were talking about the cloud. So see, I just want to clear one confusion here. So whatever we are talking about these tools, whether it's Puppet or Terraform, these are some general DevOps tools. Okay. Now, when I say if you know any cloud, AWS, Azure, GCP, it does not matter if your application is running on-prem or your application is running on any cloud. You can still use these tools. Okay, so it does not matter your application is running on-prem or they are running on the cloud. You can still set up these tools and start using it. So for example, I can run a Jenkins on my server, or I can create a EC2 instance and create a Jenkins there. In fact, what we are going to do is we are going to use a virtual machine over Azure and running these tools. Okay, so these are the DevOps tools which can run on any cloud platform or any on-premises platform. But when we talk about AWS DevOps or Azure DevOps, okay, so then this becomes a very specific to a particular cloud. Okay, it has nothing to do with these tools, and for this, it is specific to particular cloud. So, for example, if I show you Azure DevOps, so this is a Azure DevOps board. Okay, in this you need to create the projects and organization for hierarchical structure. Let's say if I go to any of my project, so Azure DevOps is a software as a service where you can have all the DevOps tool at the single place. So it's it is not free, first thing. Okay, so you need to pay for that. So here, if you see, we were discussing the repos last class. So here, these are the repositories. You can clone this repos. It is basically just the Git only, right? So you can create all the branches here. All these things we can do. We can see the commits. We can see the pushes. branches, pull request, all these things we can do from here. So it is just a platform which like Microsoft is providing us. Here also, like apart from repos, there is a pipelines. So you can create your first pipeline here. So you do not need Jenkins for that matter. You can create Azure DevOps pipelines only, right? So these are different tools. But if we know the basics of these tools, then learning any new tool would not be a tough thing because these are the basic tools. You should be knowing them. Then it makes sense to you to switch over to AWS DevOps and Azure DevOps, any particular cloud-based DevOps methodology. Okay. So any question, whatever we discuss today, we have not discussed any technical things, but the process related thing and the conceptual things. Thank you guys. This will be it for today. I think we will meet on Thursday to start with the Jenkins. Yes, Asin, I totally agree with you. So, whatever we discussed today, so I discuss all these conceptual things. So, for example, environment, release, deployment, so that once we are using those terms, so we should know what we are talking about. That is why. हेलो हाँ बताओ साजा So Ajiz, see there will be different kind of role. So mostly as a DevOps engineer, I said there yours will be two responsibilities. One is to make the code release faster and efficient. So for that you will be writing the CI/CD pipelines. Second is you make sure that environment is up and running. Okay, so you need to set up the infrastructure. So for that, nowadays there is very complex infrastructure in place. You need to work on Kubernetes, you need to work on Ansible. So that will depend on your project to project, which tools and technologies are you using. But mostly this will be your two responsibilities. Managing the code release lifecycle, and second is maintaining the environments and infrastructure. Siva, we have two type of deployment. One is blue green and another is canary. In blue green, we have one active version, one passive version. Okay, so we deploy the new version as the passive version, and we do all our sanity on this passive version. Once my sanity is completed, I'll promote it as the active version and retire the old version. While in the canary deployment, we deploy both version as the active version, but on the new version, I will just divert only a small subset of the traffic from my existing application. Okay. Cool guys, thank you for your time today. You will get the information for the next class. Tuesday will be the hands-on, I think, for you guys. So Yasin, if I'll not tell you if this is Azure, there will be no difference for you. Okay, so do not see it for the purpose of Azure. If we are going through Jenkins, see what we are doing in Jenkins. It will be same whatever we are doing on. So that is what I said. It will be similar. We are working for Jenkins here. Okay, not for AWS or Azure. I just need a machine where I will be installing the uh, Jenkins. That's it. So don't worry about AWS and Azure things. It is irrelevant for this course. Thank you. Have a good day. Goodbye all.